Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll have a few more folks join us as we go throughout the night. But just to kick us off, welcome everyone to tonight's virtual dialogue conversation with women's soccer. And as we discuss the Russell Street field renovation, my name is Tyler Lucier. I serve as one of the leadership gift officers here with the advancement team. And I've actually been with Bates for almost 7 years now. I worked for the Bates admission office for about 6 years prior to joining the advancement team. Most recently served as one of their senior associate deans and director for outreach and recruitment. And am really excited also that I grew up right here in Lewiston, so have been around the Bates community for a large part of my life. But more importantly, I'm excited that I am joined tonight by a number of panelists who will have the opportunity to share their experiences, talk about the program, and give you a sense as to what's to come with the upcoming renovation. But really hoping that tonight we'll have an opportunity to be interactive. So as you noticed, I really wanted to see who would use the chat function out of the gate, because we hope that folks will get a chance to use that to ask questions throughout the course of the program. After we have the chance to talk about the current state of the women's soccer team, to talk and introduce about the Russell Street renovation project, we'll certainly have some time for Q&A. So again, if you feel more comfortable asking a question in the chat, certainly feel free to do that. But you're also welcome to come off your, unmute your microphone and ask the question throughout the program. With that being said, I do want to introduce the panelists that'll be joining us this evening. Talking about Bates administration and Bates athletics, we're going to have Jason Fine, who is joining us this evening. Jason is the director of athletics in the start of his 7th year. Prior to Bates, he served as the director of athletics at Drew University. And Jason, I got to give you a shout out. I was reading through your accomplishments: 2-time Division III Athletic Director of the Year, which I believe you're only one of 7 people. So we'll make you blush on that one, but I thought that was pretty cool. Coach Joe Vari is also joining us tonight, head coach of the women's soccer program, been with us since 2019, and prior to that, served as the head coach at the University of Puget Sound and Rhodes College. And then last but not least, we also have Olivia Becker, who is a member of the class of 2027 and comes from Woodbridge, originally from Woodbridge, Virginia. With that being said, I'm going to let our panelists maybe speak a little bit more about their experience, introduce themselves, and then we'll jump in to talking about the soccer program. Jason, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, Tyler. Good evening, everybody. You know, my dad said when somebody said something nice about you, you probably shouldn't open your mouth and ruin it. So maybe I should just leave it right there. But you know, I got to come on with you more often. It's great to see everybody. I will say this particular group, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Usually, I'll start us off with just a little chit chat about the program. We'll get into that a little bit later. But for those of you that are current parents, and I see some on the line, I have to just tell you how enjoyable it's been working with the women's soccer team. I got to go with them to Iceland this past year. Had a great trip there and got to know them a lot, and also talked a lot about how, as students and student athletes, they're very visible and they actually have a lot of power when they can figure out how to kind of harness it. And Joe Vari and I have talked about this with them, and I'll say one of the reasons that we're here tonight to talk about the excitement of the Russell Street Field project. I truly believe it would not have happened without the vocal activism of members of the women's soccer team. So kudos to all of you. I'll talk a little bit more of that as we get going, but I think it's a really exciting time, you know, for Bates athletics in general, and we're excited that President Gary Jenkins has made it really clear that athletics is a priority moving forward during his presidency, and this is just one step in that process. So we've had an exciting year so far already in the fall and the winter, and looking forward to this spring when you know, hopefully the snow will melt and the women's soccer team will be out there for their first non-traditional season, which will be great. So look forward to talking more and answering any questions that anybody has. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Joe, do you mind kicking us off?
Sure. Thanks, Tyler. Yes, year 5 here at Bates is hard to really kind of wrap the mind around. You know, a couple of COVID years in there feel like those were, you know, whether they were 5 months or 7 years in their own, depends on, you know, kind of how you look at it in those instances. So, but as Tyler said, way of the University of Puget Sound, Rhodes College, Virginia. Originally grew up in Ohio, so you know we've kind of made the full circle in the map, and The good thing is, we got the two top corners of the state in, so we don't have to worry about the mat falling off the wall. So that is a nice thing for us. But as Jason said, been really privileged and lucky. We had a really awesome trip last April to Iceland with the players that were with the program at that point. Just a really fun and experience and a neat thing, and really able to do that with the window that we have between short term, the end of the winter semester and the start of the short term was a really perfect time for us to be able to fit in there, and navigating around some of the restrictions that we do have on the NESCAC side of things with dates and those types of things. So yeah, it's been really just kind of a great opportunity. And again, I'm super excited to see everybody on this call. And like I said, looking forward to talking more about the future of things.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. And Olivia.
Hi, everyone. My name's Olivia Becker. I'm a freshman on the team. I am from Virginia, but Maine is a long way from there. So it's been a very interesting experience in my first and half of my second semester up here. I came to Bates because I wanted to experience a different environment, because Virginia's pretty warm, I would say, compared to up here. But also I came for this team environment that I have here, and because of the academics that Bates provides. My first season here at Bates was incredible. Like, I don't think I've ever been on a better team. But the usage of a new field would definitely be appreciated. It was definitely something that everyone noticed throughout the season. Yeah.
Any idea what you're going to major in?
I'm
Early.
thinking about becoming either a chemistry major or a chemical engineer.
All righty, Olivia. Well, I'll take you off the hot seat for now, but I'm sure we may have questions for you. Well, with that being said, first and foremost, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you to our panelists for joining us. We did host a program with the men's team yesterday, the day after the Super Bowl, and so I know having these scheduled this early in the week, again, we just appreciate your time. With that being said, I do want to introduce, obviously, one of the big pieces to the conversation this evening, and that is the renovation of the Russell Street field. As Olivia has alluded to very kindly, we have done a lot of work to make that the best playing surface it can be. But as you may have heard, this past year has been very difficult with the rain and the surface and trying to maintain that grass field. And so, unfortunately, that surface is just really not a competitive opportunity. And so as we think about the real chance to elevate the student athlete experience, obviously, in this discussion, as we think about women's soccer, but also the men's program, men's and women's lacrosse, and then certainly the countless intramural and club sports as well. This is a real opportunity where we're really excited to see the college leadership team behind a project of this magnitude as it relates to Bates athletics. I know in my short time with the advancement office, having the opportunity to connect with alumni who have ties to athletic programs here, it's a real sign that President Jenkins is excited about the future of Bates, and certainly excited about athletics, which 40% of our student body are student athletes. And so really important that we continue to elevate the experience for our students, and certainly make this a facility that is usable throughout the course of the entire year. So as we think about the scope of this project, we're really thinking about renovating. Really what we're thinking about is the Russell Street Field Complex, an opportunity to have something quite similar to Garcelon Field on Russell Street. So as we think about removing the grass playing surface and bringing in FIFA-approved artificial turf, having the opportunity to bring lights to that field, and even hopefully grandstands and maybe even a press box opportunity. We're really aiming on having a field that can be used throughout the entire course of the year as well. As we've alluded to, a field that is plowable, that will have lights for when it's dark after 4:30 is really, really important in giving us the flexibility we need for scheduling and certainly competitive playing surfaces. The overall project at the moment is around a $3.5 million investment. And President Jenkins and the leadership team have supported this in the form of a $1.5 million opportunity, but we are looking to fundraise $2 million to really round out this project. As we think about timeline, With the college's support, we are able to move ahead, and we're actually going to begin construction on this field this summer with the aim of having it ready to go and ready for competition in the fall of 2024. So this is something that we are moving really quickly, and that I think really, as you think of our leadership team, they've been incredibly responsive to feedback about what the playing surface currently was like and what we really can do to offer us some flexibility. For the alums on the call that maybe have been on these fields before, and for the parents, Bates really has about 5 athletic fields on campus, but really Garcelon serves as the only multi-purpose and multi-use field. We have the Campus Avenue field, which is used primarily for field hockey. We've got our baseball and softball fields, and we have Russell Street. And so again, this is a real opportunity to give us some flexibility in scheduling so that students don't have to maybe have late practices trying to run the commons at a certain time. There's just a lot of moving parts that go into having limited facility space. And so this, again, will really offer some greater flexibility. As I mentioned, we are aiming to fundraise for about $2 million, and I'll share some resources and what that looks like. But for folks that are on the call that are excited about this opportunity as well, support is just not in the form of potentially a gift to this project, but also in sharing this conversation and sharing these resources and continuing to generate excitement for what this might look like. But I'm going to let Jason and Joe talk a little bit about how this will impact their teams, maybe some changes in the NESCAC policy as well, and really illustrating why this is a really pressing issue for our students and for the campus community. Jason, you mind kicking us off?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll hand it off to Joe. And Tyler, we've been doing this a lot now. You've got this down pat about the impact outside of actual soccer, which is so important because, as Tyler mentioned, with 5 fields total here, and one that is a turf field that has lights on it, you know, there's just so much competing for that limited resource. And the weather has just been such an unpredictable factor. So really, it's only able to be used the first part of the season and then later in the spring. So, but the things around missed class time and around meal time, and these are constantly things that we're hearing from the student athletes that are, just putting more pressures on their time, and they're anxious about it, right? These are some of the best academically prepared students in the nation, and they come here and they want a great athletics experience, and they don't want their academic experience to suffer at all. So they're always trying to make sure that that we're taking that into account when we're working out practice time, things like that. So having lights on this field also, and it be a turf field, is going to be amazing. It's also going to allow us to continue some of the partnerships that we do with the community, with schools, create opportunities in that non-traditional season, which has not been something that the NESCAC has ever done before. And the NESCAC is, a different league, and it's highly competitive, but it's kind of behind the rest of the nation in terms of, how much we can do. So this is an exciting time. We did a pilot program at that during COVID, and the feedback from student athletes across the league was just, overwhelming. It's also going to give us an opportunity, not so much, for this group impact, but it will improve some of the track and field throwing areas as well, which will be important. We also think that Tyler mentioned the timeline. I just want to be clear. Sometimes with construction projects, as anyone knows, it could push a little later than we want, weather depending and things like that. So we're taking some contingency plans for alternate sites if we needed to at the beginning of the season, but we're hoping that is not going to happen. But I think there's a first step in a process, that is going to be ongoing, that you'll be seeing with Bates Athletics, and going forward, is kind of the first step in some of the priorities that we've been pushing out there with folks. And it's, the response has been overwhelming, which is great. We're really excited that the administration has kind of taken on, even while we're going through this fundraising process, to be able to come up with a timeline. And we've had a bunch of meetings with the architects and the planning group that is working on making sure that we're having everything set so that this spring, as soon as the semester ends and the weather's good, we can go ahead and break ground. I'll let Joe talk a little bit more about the impact specifically on women's soccer and what to expect going ahead there, and then I'm happy to jump in and answer any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I mean, you really think about it in a couple of different seasons as you really approach, not only the academic semesters, but just kind of the seasons that they are for the team. I mean, we've we've had a stretch of very mild weather here, and the grass is still covered in snow. The turf or the track is not. So, and then with Garcelon right now, the baseball, softball, and lacrosses have been able to be on that surface. So, that really is kind of a big impact. With the grass surface, we were training and playing on the same surface, so the wear and tear in the goal mouths was significantly high. Lewiston is a sneaky soccer culture as well too, where there's kind of always games going on in the summer, and there's always somebody on that field. So everybody goes there and they want to take PK. So, grass field PK marks are always a little bit of trouble. The goal mouths were always a little bit of trouble. So, a really change into the turf system really helps out in that aspect of things. We're not so much worried about the wear and tear. We can train on it, get both teams on it. And really the adjustment for lights really solves, in my opinion, a lot of kind of the pain points that we've had, of being able to having to bounce between Russell to Garcelon, a couple of spaces in between. So now with that being a lit facility, it really becomes about being an opportunity between us and the men's program, just really sorting out the schedule, and being able to rotate that, make that evenly between both programs. And we'll know that we'll always be on that surface, which is super helpful. Also helps us with some storage of equipment, those types of things. We're not really, packing up the bags and having to move cameras and a lot of things around in that aspect of it. So the light facility really will help that much more, in that aspect of things. As Tyler alluded to, we obviously lose daylight really quickly up here in the fall. So there were times where we really could only get one team on Russell for a proper practice, just with it getting dark. So, really, really massive impacts for us, really on directly for men's and women's soccer in the fall. As Jason talked about, we're allowed 10 practices this spring. Again, right now, Russell is covered with snow, so we'll start our practices after this February break. And it becomes about trying to fit our schedule, men's soccer schedule, lacrosse schedules, club schedules, all into one field. So it becomes a pretty big puzzle of having to kind of navigate and piece all of those things together. So us having two turf facilities with lights really will alleviate a ton of that pressure, in that aspect of it. And with the meals at Commons as well too, where if we're just stacked with men's and women's soccer in the fall, we're able to get our players in for that late time meal, before Commons closes at 8:30 very easily. So they'll be able to kind of still go see sports med, shower, locker room change, and still have a comfortable amount of time to get over to Commons to get something to eat. And that was was a pain point that the students brought up over the fall as well too, where they would have to kind of rush a little bit quicker to get to Commons and then try and sort things out with that. So all in all, very, very excited about it. I think it's a really great step. President Jenkins has been really great so far on the athletic side of things, and being very, very at events and very accessible. And had a really, really good conversation, and it's been really great to see him at so many different sporting events. And so obviously we're really excited about this project.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Coach. With that being said, I mean, I certainly have some questions that I can throw to our panelists, but I'm curious for those on the call, if you'd like to unmute your mic and ask your question, you're welcome to do so. But if you'd like to put a question to the chat, we certainly can answer it there. But does anyone have any questions?
I'll ask one. I assume you're going to cover the fundraising to date.
That is
And
a very great question, Nancy.
and then going forward, what your plans are, what your thoughts are.
Absolutely. Well, why don't and I certainly right after this can throw the question I saw in the chat. Kristen, thank you. What is the underlayment being used under the turf? Maybe Jason, we can address that after. But I do want to share some resources, and we'll certainly have some follow-up opportunity after this call where we'll share the recording. We'll share more information about the project itself, just so if there are individuals on this call, potentially other parents or other alumni, that you know might be really interested and excited to learn more about this project, that you feel empowered, that you have the resources to share a little bit more information, so you don't have to remember everything we said this evening. But let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm just going to share, this is going to be the main landing page that we'll have a chance to share with you all, where you'll have a chance to kind of see the breakdown for the renovation project. So in this page here, you'll notice that first and foremost, we've got students doing the talking. So you can hear from our students a little bit more about what this will have as far as an impact on them. You'll learn a little bit more about the synthetic turf field and what that's going to look like, and also a visual of what the complex is really aiming to look like and why we're excited about it. We also will have the recordings for the events right here. So again, if you're curious about where the recordings were living, you'll have that opportunity. Also on here to answer the question, we are really excited to share that for the $2 million fundraising goal we currently have around $500,000 pledged to this project. So as I mentioned at the start, the college has dedicated $1.5 million towards making this a reality, and we've already raised $500,000 towards this project. So we still have a ways to go to reach our goal, but we've been incredibly excited to see the energy and enthusiasm about really the opportunity to support a major project like this for Bates Athletics. So that's where we currently sit as far as fundraising. And as I mentioned, really hope that this website will be a real useful tool for folks after the event. I do want to mention quickly, and I know we're talking about women's soccer, but you'll notice this opportunity on the page as well. We have a really exciting moment to honor a longtime coach here at Bates, Coach Al Farashidian, where alum of the program, Coach Jeff Snyder from the class of 2000, has actually pledged $75,000 in the form of a matching opportunity to rename a track and field scoreboard in honor of Coach Al, and really give track and field another resource for themselves in the upcoming season. So you'll have a chance here to hear from Coach. There's a video, and certainly there is the fundraising page for the scoreboard project as well. So that's just a little bit about the resources. Probably shared too much, but Nancy, I hope that was helpful.
Tyler, I like that. This is the first time we've gotten a technical question in the chat about the turf. Happy to touch base on that quickly. And I should mention that our campus planning folks are the big experts on that site and the survey that was done under there. But the product that we have will have it's a crushed, I'm not sure how much everybody knows about this, but there's a crushed stone base that goes underneath the field, and then there's what they call a shock pad that is under the actual turf. So the playability of the product is similar to what we have on Garcelon. I'm not sure if the vendor for the actual turf has been selected, but the product that we have on Garcelon is a Shaw Sports Turf. If you look at their website, it has some more information on that, but I believe it's going to be a Shaw as well.
So is that like a crushed rubber surface, or is it something else?
Yeah, crushed rubber.
Okay. And is that universally accepted among all of the NESCAC teams?
Yes.
I'm only asking because this is a huge debate in our community, because we've been battling a turf field for, oh God, 10 years. I know that there are other surfaces that might be more either environmentally friendly or, friendly to, my daughter's a goalkeeper, so, she tends to wear a lot of that when she's playing.
Yes. Yeah, there's a ton of I know the debate that you're talking about, and there's a ton of stuff online, and I think just my personal opinion, that the jury is still out on the benefits of some of those more quote unquote environmentally friendly surfaces, especially, and I think that some of the information out there on the more generally accepted ones is also a little bit of misinformation out there. So, but this was all kind of really vetted hard when we did Garcelon. So I think we're rocking and rolling pretty easily on this one, because we did get some questions about that, just about the friendliness, to the environment and things like that when we were planning the Garcelon field. So, yeah, I'm happy to share more information about that I don't have at my fingertips, but our Chris Streifel, who's our head of campus planning, has a lot of that information, because we did a couple meetings about that when we planned Garcelon out. So great, it's a great question, all good, and curious to hear a little bit about your community battle that might have been going on.
Well,
Because I've heard a
Jason,
lot of it.
I invite you to come down and make a presentation to our community that believes that only grass is the only surface that is acceptable for a field.
Yeah, and the purist, in me would love to agree with that. And I'm sure that if we had if all our places had those dedicated folks like the, MLS or something like that to keep it, and I know that you get some weather concerns where you are as well, I'm sure. So it's not easy to keep a grass pitch, as much as I'm sure Joe would love one as well, like everybody else. It's just it's not the reality of most of the things that are going to be fields for municipalities or colleges, or that if you're not going to have dedicated equipment and staff to really keeping that playable, you end up with what Ruby's been dealing with and the rest of the team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think
pick your poison, right? In some
yeah.
ways, yeah.
I mean, I think if you asked any player, they would probably prefer to play on a grass surface. But when a surface is used with the frequency that Garcelon is, or I'm sorry, that Russell is, there's really not many other options.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's right. It's between the weather and just the usage that it gets just from community, from recreational folks, from just so much. And then, you see what it's like kind of once you get into the month into the season.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that all of the players will appreciate, and especially the goalies, not having to 10 goal in front of a mud pit.
Yeah, that's the worst spot. So
yeah,
it's yeah, and they're excited. And just to kind of reiterate what I said earlier on the call, at one point they went and had a meeting with our CFO, which I thought was a great moment, in kind of taking their fight to the streets, so about how it kind of affects them on the day-to-day, which I thought was great. And that helped provide some context that sometimes when you're the director of a department advocating for 31 sports and 800 student athletes, it's not as personal as it is when you see how these things affect the students directly. So it's really, kind of proud, as I'm sure you all are, of all of them and the ones that went and represented. But that really helped us, push the project along, and some of the, made it hit home a little bit more, I think.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you guys this fall.
Yeah, you too. And I just saw that question there from Jeff. I believe, I can't say 100% that cork was considered or not considered. I know that alternative fills to the rubber in general were considered, but I'm not 100% sure exactly what was considered in that project. And we had project managers, because we hired a third-party company as well to help with that. So Tyler, we could probably get Chris to share some of that information for folks that are, interested in it.
Absolutely. I have, so on the main landing page for the project, I have all my contact information, and I'll share that here as well. So certainly happy to follow up and to touch base with Chris so we can talk a little bit more about some of those pieces that are important. But Jason, thank you for taking that question, because I was going to have to basically say that and check back in with Chris. But I know, I mean, Chris ran through a large list of options that they were considering as a part of it. But even here in Lewiston, the high school dragged their feet on getting rid of the grass field for their fall sports and other sports teams and just put in a new turf field here in Lewiston. So the debate keeps going. In ideal conditions, grass is great. But unfortunately, Maine is very rarely an ideal in the winter.
I can take on Scott's question as well in the chat.
Oh,
there,
perfect.
sharing the field, which is also a good question. We this will be men's and women's soccer, and they'll have priority on it during the season. Men's and women's lacrosse will also practice on it. It's a backup, game field if needed for them, but their home field is Garcelon, and but should something happen, the beauty of that site also is that the sun hits Russell way better than it hits Garcelon during the day. So what we notice is that the snow will melt better on Russell than it will on Garcelon. But so that area just gets more direct sunlight, but we'll be able to plow it. But there will be, recreational teams on there and things as well. But priority is absolutely to the soccer programs, and they'll kind of dictate the beauty of having another field like that too, is you'll be able to really utilize that 4:30 to 6:30 time slot instead of having to stagger on one field as well at some times of the year where you're going 4:30, 6:30, 6:30, 8:30, then other two programs are coming on 8:30 to 10:30, and it gets really late into the night. So we won't have that problem, and our two soccer programs work really well together. So that is not something that folks should be concerned about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. If anybody had any other, I like all the questions.
All right. Well, certainly we don't want to keep folks any later than than you need to be over here in Maine at 7:30. But certainly as we think about the next steps, obviously, as we've been able to share as a part of some of the tools online, but also as we've had our conversation, obviously we have a lot of exciting work still ahead of us as we aim to hit that $2 million fundraising goal. But I do also want to stress, and this has been on every call, that we really hope, most importantly, that folks have the opportunity to share this project within your network of other potentially Bates parents or Bates alumni as we get excited about really launching the major fundraising effort. So after today, just to give folks a sense of the timeline, we are going to be connecting with really alumni and Bates parents connected to the men's and women's soccer and lacrosse programs in this coming month. And then as we get into March, you'll start to see a real push on social media and other networks. So a big shout out to our communications team, who are really incredible at getting that message out there. So we'll share more materials. We'll be able to share our URL for the website, the recording. That will all be a part of the follow-up. And I have my contact information on the main landing page, but I certainly will share my email here just in case anyone is interested in connecting with us directly, so we can have that conversation. Or if folks would like to learn more specifics about the project. Kristen, thank you for asking the question about the surface. We certainly can dig a little bit deeper and get some more complete information there as well. So before I say goodbye, any last questions before we wrap up? All righty, now I know how my wife feels as a first grade teacher, just pausing. But I appreciate everyone's support. We appreciate the excitement. Thank you to the panelists for joining us tonight. We look forward to connecting with you all in the future, and go Bobcats. Hope you all have a great night.